Hello and welcome to the Toffee Blues, your source for all things Everton, and welcome to the preview video for Everton versus West Ham, taking place on Monday for Monday Night Football at the Hill Dickinson Stadium. It's a bit of an interesting one, this game. Initially, I would have just come into this or the starting 11 show or whatever I do, stating how confident I am that we're going to win this and how easy this is going to be. But of course, this morning they have sacked Graham Potter and almost immediately replacing him with Nuno Espirito Santo. A really good hire for West Ham, I think. It's a big week, 2 games at home, with Monday being against West Ham and then next Sunday being against Crystal Palace, who of course have just come off a big win against Liverpool themselves, the first team to beat Liverpool in the Premier League this season. But yeah, thoughts going into this game against West Ham, I'm still relatively confident. I think even with Nuno in charge, he's going to have troubles getting that defence to click right. I think he's going to be able to improve it, but to the lengths he's going to be able to improve it, I'm not too sure. I do definitely think we need a win. 2 previous fixtures being defeats. Still are unbeaten at the Hill Dickinson though, so that is a good thing, and I do think we need to win these next 2 games just to keep the home form going. Because I think it's really important, if you want to have a good league position, you've got to have good home form or really good away form. Of course, if you have both, you probably win the league. But if you want to challenge for Europe, I feel like if you've got really good one of them, you can usually challenge if you're consistently winning games at home. And I think we need that. I'm not saying we're going to be able to qualify for Europe or anything, but I think consistent home form should be really important for the club. It should be, especially for this first season, of course for all seasons, but this one specifically. So when people go to the ground, it feels like they're not going to see a loss, which I can imagine Goodison started to feel like a little bit at points and over the past few years. So I definitely think it's one where they need to have this environment where it feels like you're going to win you feel like you're going to see Everton win if you go watch a game at the Hill Dickinson. So we'll have to see, and of course it is an international break after Crystal Palace. So on not this Sunday, the Sunday next. So that, I think that's really important. Going on to West Ham, absolutely, genuinely, I think the worst team in the league. I know they did beat Forest and Wolves have got less points than them, but from when I watch both teams, I think West Ham look the worst in the league by a mile. How much of that is on Graham Potter, I'm unsure, because they wasn't really good when they brought him in initially. But at the same time, I just don't know what to think about West Ham. I think their defence is horrid. I think Mads Hermansen's really struggled since he's come in. It feels like there's no defensive solidity at all, and then of course relying on Fulkrug and Callum Wilson up top, when both of them have really struggled with goals recently. Of course, Callum Wilson, a lot of it to injury, but I think it's one of those where it's an interesting one in terms of all the pieces say that we should absolutely dominate this game and we should batter West Ham. But of course, I think Nuno Santos is a really good manager. I think he's going to really solidify them defensively. I'm not sure if it's going to be enough to get them out of that bottom 5 in the league. I think he'll be able to keep them up. Look what he did with Nottingham Forest, but also he practically had an unlimited budget at Nottingham Forest. With West Ham, I'm not sure how much he's going to have. They've spent a lot of money over the years and they've not been able to get the positions in the league that would justify that. Of course, it wasn't that long ago that they did win the initial Europa Conference League and were doing well under David Moyes, but I think Nuno will be able to keep them up. I think that's without a doubt. I think there's enough quality in that side. You look at players like Lucas Paqueta, Jared Bowen. I think that new left back looks quite good. Crescencio Somerville, they've got really good players, but you look at the midfield. I think the midfield's really poor. I don't know if I can get West Ham's last lineup in, but James Ward-Prowse and then that Mateus Fernandes is quite good, but not the best defensively, I wouldn't say. But yeah, it's one of those where I don't know. That's just the last starting 11 they played, so of course that might have been a cup game. I'm not sure if West Ham's still in the cup. But yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting one, of course. But I do think under Graham Potter, West Ham were quite comfortably the worst team in the league. On the eye test anyway, I think they were absolutely terrible. But again, new manager, new style of player, manager who's really being able to succeed with a low to position league in the team. We've seen West Ham qualify for Europe not that long ago, so and a lot of those players are still at the club. Of course, not all of them, but quite a few of those players are still at the club. So there's a good core of players here. It's just, can Nuno get them to click before the ship sinks? I'm not too sure, but we'll have to see. I don't think it's going to be easy as it would have been with Graham Potter in charge, that's what I will say. In terms of injury news, Millerall and Jared Bramthwaite are still out, and Moyes' recent comments on Adam Asno show that he isn't getting into the first team anytime soon, and I'd say expect a loan in January. A likely lineup. Again, we do the starting 11 show, which will probably be coming out tomorrow. So I'm not going to go too into detail about this, to be honest with you, because that's the entire point of that. But I can imagine it's going to be Pickford, O'Brien, Tarkowski, Keane, Mykolenko, Garner, Gay, Ndai, Dewsbury Hall, Grealish, and I think it'll be Beto because Barry looked stinky against Wolves, from what I've heard. Again, I mentioned this on the last video I did with Paul. I wasn't watching the game. I had other things to do. So, but from what I've heard, it wasn't the best. And then we go on to who do I think the key players are going to be this game, and I'm going to exclude myself from picking Grealish because he's the obvious one. But I do think West Ham are really weak through the middle. Fernandes and Ward-Prowse, I don't feel like there's enough defensively there. Diouf, I'm not sure on his defensive abilities. If I have a look here, his defensive contributions are not the best. Again, these are just going off numbers and statistics, but yeah, his duels won 46% is really low. His interceptions are low, so that makes me think this would be a good game for Iliman Ndiaye to take him on, to challenge him a little bit. But I do think Dewsbury Hall could have a big game here as well, and James Garner. I think could have really good games here. I do think we're going to need a lot from Mykolenko to keep Jared Bowen quiet. And I do think Somerville can be tricky on his day if he plays. So I think O'Brien. But I think if I just pick the standout, the player who I think might stand out the most, I actually think it's going to be Dewsbury Hall. I think he's going to have a really good game. I think he's going to chip in with a goal in this game, and I think he's going to have a really good performance. I think he's been good so far. I think it's going to be his first real standout performance where he looks like the best player on the pitch. And then players who I think players like Irubinum, Barry, McNeil, if they come on, they really need to have an impact, or else it's just, again, I see at this rate McNeil being gone in January. I see Irubinum being placed out on loan, and Barry, I think Barry just, again, yeah, I think he's young, he needs time to adjust. He's a work in progress striker. I'm not willing to write him off as quick as, not even the other two. I just think McNeil's going to want more first team football, so he's going to want to leave, and then Irubinum I just think needs the loan desperately. But yeah, I think players like that really need to step up their game. Because I just think, or else they're going to be left in the dust, really. And I think both strikers too, Beto and Barry, I think both of them have. I think Barry's actually been probably a bit better. Beto's absolutely stunk whenever I've watched him, to be honest with you. So a big performance from Beto is probably needed as well. Because it feels like all he's offering is running in a straight line and then nothing else. In the derby, the ball was floated into him right in front of the box. It might have been the derby, it might have been the game before that. He was one-on-one with the keeper. All he had to do was shoot, and should have been a goal. But instead, he kind of just looked at the ball like it was a piece of gold or something, and then that was it. And then just before my score prediction, the West Ham player to watch. Bit of an obvious answer, but I'm going to go with Jared Bowen here. I think he's one of the best players who doesn't play for a top 6 club, and I think he's going to really trouble us with his cutting inside, getting shots at Jordan Pickford. I think he's going to be the player we have to watch out for, because he's a player who can get a goal out of nowhere and drag West Ham back into the game. So I am going to say Jared Bowen is going to be my West Ham player to watch, even if it is the obvious answer, really. And then my score prediction, I'm going to say 2-0 Everton. I'm going to say we take a win. Reasonably comfortable. I think Nuno's going to be more set on West Ham sitting back and being solid defensively, but then he's going to be forced to go for the game when we get that first goal. I could see West Ham nicking a goal, but I'm going to have faith and say that there is going to be a clean sheet. And yeah, I'm going to say 2-0 to Everton to continue the unbeaten run at the Hill Dickinson Stadium. But that is all for this video. If you did enjoy, please make sure to like and subscribe. Follow us on Twitter at Everton Newsfeed, and follow myself on Twitter at CallumBrandon3. And I'll see you all for the next video and or live stream that I am on.